Hello, guys and gals, and welcome. So today we've got a special episode for you on chipped gems. What are chipped gems good for? I made a video a while back, what are perfect gems good for? And there's a lot of things perfect gems are good for, but what specifically are chipped gems good for? Well, today let's go over several items, several ways that you can utilize your chipped gems and get the most out of them. The first off is probably the most obvious, and I feel like we'll go over this one first, and that is the Chippy Bow. That's right, the Chippy Bow. This is one of the easiest ways for you to get some uses out of your chipped gems, is to early on in the game, either for yourself or for your Act 1 bow girl, is to make her a Chippy Bow. Chippy Bows can be any combination of elemental damage, and generally what you are looking at is the chipped Topaz, the chipped Sapphire, the chipped Ruby, or the chipped Emerald. You don't generally want to use the chipped Diamond because it's only a damage to undead, which is off weapon ED, which is going to be absolutely terrible for you at a low level. You also don't want to look at the chipped Amethyst because it's just attack rating, and at a low level you don't necessarily even need that much attack rating to hit your targets. So in general you want to avoid using the chipped Amethyst and the chipped Diamond for the Chippy Bow. The Chippy Bow is really simple. You basically just load it up with whatever combination of chipped gems that you can. I usually recommend you have at least one chipped Sapphire in there because you want the cold damage so that you have the chilling effect. And then, of course, you're going to throw in the elemental damage. You could throw in the chipped Topaz and then a chipped Ruby, and you'd have a very nice 3 to 4 fire damage, 1 to 8 lightning, and 1 to 3 cold, which when you wield this item, is going to give you a very nice damage bonus as far as elemental damage is concerned of a pretty decent amount. So of course I have enchant on right now. Hold on. Let me remove my enchant, shall I? All right, here we go. So now that my enchant's gone, you can see that my attack damage is only 3 to 7, and when I put on the bow, I go to 22 to 74, which is a pretty decent amount of extra elemental damage. It's just a nice way that at a low level you can pretty much kill just about anything. Pretty much all through Act 1 and even a little bit into Act 2, this bow will do you quite well. And honestly, in Act 1, your mercenary will probably be out damaging you. And that is the funny thing about using the Chippy Bow. The really other cool thing about the Chippy Bow is that you can, of course, upgrade it at any time. If you find flawed gems or normal gems or even flawless gems, you can, of course, upgrade your Chippy Bow to a higher standard. Let's move on to the next object on the list, and that is an interesting one. You guys and gals may not have ever done this, but we'll see. So the next item on our list is recharging charges. So if you have ever been in a situation where you have utilized the charges on an item to their utmost and completely drained them away, you may have been confronted with quite a hefty repair bill to get those items back in shape. And if we take a look at Larzik right now, I currently have 2 items on my character. A Demon Limb, which has used all its charges, which currently costs 209,280 gold. And a Corpseborn Breastplate, which has 40 Corpse Explosion charges, which I have utilized and now will cost me 36,408 gold to repair. Now, of course, I could pay this gold, but why pay this gold when I can basically do it for free? 209,000 gold is a lot of gold, and it literally only costs me a chipped gem and an Ort or a Ral rune. So the Ral rune is used to repair armors, and the Ort rune is used to repair weapons. If you have never learned this recipe before, let me tell you, it's a really nice one to know. Basically, what you're going to do is you're going to take a Ral rune or an Ort rune, either one, and you're going to take any kind of chip gem. It really doesn't matter. It can be a sapphire, it can be a ruby, it can be whatever. It doesn't matter what chip gem you've got. And then you're going to take your item and you're going to put it in the cube. And when you put your item in the cube with the weapon, it's going to repair the item. Now, if you put it in there with just a Ral rune, it's only going to repair the armor or the weapon, or just an Ort rune. It's not going to recharge the item. To recharge the item, you need the chipped gem. So if I did this with only the Ort rune, I'm not going to get the charges repaired. But if I do it with the Ort rune, it will repair the charges, which is exactly what I want. And now I have 23 charges again on my Demon Limb. or sorry, 20 charges of my level 23 enchant. And the same goes for my my beautiful, beautiful Corpseborn Blade. I want to have my 40 charges again. And so I'm going to take my Ral Rune, I'm going to take my Chipped Gem, and I'm going to hit Transmute, and it will repair all the charges on this particular item. And I think it has to have a slight amount of damage to it, which normally that's not an issue, but I'd have to go get beat up for a second here. Nope, no need to get beat up because I made a mistake, which is perfectly fine. I mean, everybody makes mistakes. My mistake is very simple. To repair armors, it requires a flawed gem, not a chipped gem. For the weapon, it is a chipped gem. So if you want to restore the charges on a armor plate, it has to be a flawed gem. It's also important to note that this does not work on amulets, rings. These things are not considered armors or weapons, and for some reason or another, the recharge recipe does not work on either of them. Let's move on to the next one. Yes, there's even more, and that is making juvies. So if you guys are unaware, you can actually make rejuvenation potions. Rejuvenation potions are actually pretty easy to make. Chip gems are used in the process of making them, or you can make them, you can up-transmute them as well by taking multiple rejuvenation potions and putting them in the cube, and you'll get full juvies. But basically, if you take any potion, it does not have to be the high-tier potions. It can be any potion. It's 3 potions of healing and 3 potions of mana. And like I said, these can be the absolute dirt tier Act 1 potions. They don't have to be these high-level potions. You take 3 of each, and you put a chip gem in there with it, and you hit Transmute, and you will get a single rejuvenation potion. This is an interesting way that you can get juvies when you don't necessarily otherwise have access to them. Maybe you're trying to fight Duriel and regular potions aren't enough. Maybe you're trying to, you're in hardcore and you would like to have a couple juvies on your bar for those emergency situations. This is an interesting way that you can get yourself some juvies for relatively cheap, especially since chipped gems at a certain point are relatively useless to you, right? I mean, you're not going to be socketing your gear with them. You're pretty much just going to be using them for these interesting recipes. Moving on to the next one, we have another topic. The next item on the list is the Savage Polearm. So the Savage Polearm is an odd recipe. It basically involves a diamond, specifically a diamond, of any variety, which why not use a chipped, since if you're going to use any diamond, you might as well use the one that is the least valuable to you. And what it does is you take a kris of any type, you take a staff of any type, and you take a belt of any type, and you put it into the cube with any diamond, and you transmute, and you will obtain what is known as a Savage Polearm. A Savage Polearm is basically a magical polearm with the Savage effect. Savage is a high enhanced damage. This can come in really handy when you are dealing out early on in ladder, because it gives you a decent weapon for your mercenary when you otherwise wouldn't otherwise have one. You don't necessarily have to purchase any of these items, by the way. What you're looking to do is you're looking to basically just find a random belt, find a random staff, find a random kris, put it in the cube with a random diamond, and you get yourself a Savage Polearm. Now, the Savage Polearm is an interesting option because what it does is it gives you the ability to create a decent weapon for your mercenary during a time when you probably won't have one. Alright, so I had to go and grab a regular kris and a regular belt, but it is okay if you use any staff of any type and the chipped diamond. And what you end up with is a Savage Polearm of some type. And I couldn't have got a better roll because I ended up getting a 6% lifesteal polearm, which is exactly the kind of thing that you're looking for. So what this recipe does is it gives you a polearm that always spawns with the 66 to 80% enhanced damage Savage prefix. The second prefix is random, and the item level will be around eye level 50. It can be any of the following: a bardache, a battle scythe, a bill, a halberd, a lochbar axe, a partisan, a poleaxe, a scythe, a volge, or a war scythe. Now, as you can see, I managed to roll an exceptional base, so a lochbar, and I managed to roll lifesteal. So this would be an absolutely perfect Act 2 mercenary weapon that you could utilize early on to keep your mercenary alive. It's hard to beat 10 to 100 damage with 6% lifesteal at level 21. Next on the list is rerolling class items. So rerolling class items is a very interesting thing. If you have never done this before, it is quite honestly one of the oddest little things that you can do. Basically, what rerolling a class item does is it gives you the ability to reroll the effects on the item in a way that could potentially end up with something that you're looking for. So let's take, for instance, a Necromancer head, which is the most obvious choice. Let's say we have a damaged demon head. Well, a damaged demon head can be repaired. But in the process of repairing the damaged demon head, we will essentially be re-rolling whatever it is that is on the item. This is the process by which you re-roll the piece of equipment. The two recipes, by the way, are an L rune, a chipped gem, and a low-quality armor, or an Eld rune and a chipped gem and a low-quality weapon. What you would re-roll for weapons would be things like paladin scepters, assassin claws. You could also re-roll, obviously, for helmets. You could re-roll the barbarian helmets, the druid helmets. You could re-roll the necromancer heads. All of these can spawn with plus to skills, and as you re-roll them, you can re-roll them to different plus to skills. So for instance, let's go ahead and start re-rolling these, and let's play around with the idea. So we're going to need an L and a chipped gem, and we will re-roll this damaged demon head into a non-damaged demon head, and in the process of re-rolling it, it will turn into the correct item. I actually have these created. That's why they have 269 defense. Don't pay attention to that. So when I re-rolled it, I ended up with nothing. Let's try again. And that is a possibility, by the way. When you re-roll it, you can, in fact, end up with nothing. There we go. This time I ended up with +2 skeleton mastery and +1 bone armor. Notice how it did not have that before, and I was capable of re-rolling the plus to skills. Let's try again. We got nothing that time. And as you can see, you don't always get something. It's not going to always be a good solution. So as we re-roll these, you'll notice that sometimes they just end up as garbage. And that's perfectly fine because we're not trying to, you know, like get the most godlike item in the world on every single roll. We only want one. Only one of them needs to roll something good. This time we got bone armor. Now, one of the downsides about doing this, and this is something that I have discovered, is that when you repair the item, it tends to re-roll the eye level of the item as well. And what this means is that what the skills the item is capable of getting change. So when the item dropped, like say you were in, I don't know, Chaos Sanctuary or something, and you were killing level 85 monsters. The monster that dropped the damaged item would have, that item would have had the ability to have every single skill on it. However, when you re-roll it, it only tends to re-roll skills that are low-level skills. Notice so far that the only skills that we have gotten have been Teeth, Amplify Damage, Skeleton Mastery, Skeleton. Those are level 1 skills. As far as I'm aware, when you re-roll these items, they can only obtain level 1 skills. But this is not exactly a bad thing. In fact, in some situations, it is a good thing, because it may very well be the skill that you are trying to get. In the case of the Necromancer, Skeleton and Skeleton Mastery are two of the best skills you can have on a head. So if you can end up with +3 Skeleton, +3 Skeleton Mastery, along with maybe something like Amplify Damage, you have a very, very nice helmet, or head, essentially, that you can, of course, socket and put something nice in, like, you know, like a Rhyme Shield or a, or perhaps a Splendor, both of which are good options. And you can just do this every single time you find one. So if you're playing in Chaos Sanctuary or you're playing anywhere and a damaged head or a damaged anything drops, you can repair it, re-roll it, and try and get something better. This is something that you may have seen me do on occasion as I've been roaming around the Chaos Sanctuary area. I will find a damaged demon head. I'll go, ooh, a damaged demon head or a cracked demon head, and I will take that demon head. I'll put it in my stash. Later on, you'll see me pull out a chip gem and I'll re-roll it. And if it ends up with something good, I keep it. And if it ends up with something bad, I sell it. It's just something that you can do with your chip gems to give them a little bit more value. Next on the list is an easy one. It is transmuting gems, or sorry, runes. So transmuting gems is another use of chipped gems, and obviously you can do 3 thulls. And once you have 3 thulls, you cannot transmute them any further. Thull rune is the first rune in the list that requires a catalyst to transmute up. To transmute 3 Thull runes, you're going to need 1 chipped topaz. It has to be specifically a topaz, and that gets you to the Am rune. Am runes similarly cannot be transmuted up, and they require 1 chipped amethyst. They will transmute up into a soul rune. Soul runes also cannot be transmuted up without a catalyst, and they require 1 chipped sapphire. These sapphires also require, these shales also require a catalyst, and they will transmute up to a dull rune with chipped rubies, something I would probably never do because shales are infinitely more useful than dull runes. However, dull runes can transmute up to the hell rune, which is used by the chipped emerald. The Hell rune, which I really do find useful, is also transmuted up into the Io rune by using a chipped diamond. If you were ever interested in the order of which this works, it's actually called TASRED. TASRED is the order that you use for transmuting up gems. So it's always Topaz, Amethyst, Sapphire, Ruby, and then Emerald Diamond, which spells out TASRED, TASRED. TASRED is the acronym that you use for transmuting runes. Just always remember TASRED. Topaz, Amethyst, Sapphire, Ruby, Emerald, Diamond. That is the correct order for transmuting up. Which means that if you're going to transmute up your Io rune, what would you need? You would need a flawed Topaz. And then you would need a flawed Amethyst, a flawed Sapphire, a flawed Ruby, a flawed Emerald, and then a flawed Diamond, and so forth in that order. Skulls are not used in this, so they don't get to be added into the tasering. And then last but not least is the most obvious of uses for the chipped gems, and that is basically just transmuting them up. So just like with the transmuting up of the runes, you can take 3 of any chipped gem and you can transmute them up to the next tier. So 3 chipped topazes will equal 1 flawed topaz, 3 chipped amethysts will equal 1 flawed amethyst, and so forth and so on. And then you can use those flaweds for specific purposes as well. There's really not a lot more to go over when it comes to this particular topic. I've gone over just about every recipe where these are useful. And I think the only other recipe that I haven't done is the adding of sockets to a magic item. This one's kind of an odd one, and I'm not really sure specifically if anyone would be really interested in this as an option. But essentially what you can do is you can add sockets to any magic item using chipped gems. And how this works is you take your magic item and you put it into the cube, and you put 3 chipped gems of any type. And I'm not sure if this recipe even still works. Do some research real quick. I think it's weapons only. I think that's the mistake I'm making here. Weapons only, I think. So let's take a magical weapon. There we go. And just like that, we get the the mechanic that allows you to have sockets in a magic item. Now, this, of course, does not allow you to put rune words in. Don't make that mistake. However, it will roll anywhere between, I believe, warriors to mechanics, I'm pretty sure. It basically gives you, like, one to two sockets, if I remember correctly. I mean, we could do it again. Let me just grab another item, and we'll try it one more time and see if we get two sockets. Obviously, the goal of this would be to find something that actually has some decent sockets or a decent effect on it before you transmute. We could even maybe gamble an item. It doesn't really matter. There we go. So now we have a Sword of Blight. And now it is a Triumphant Scimitar with a single socket in it. So as you can see, it also changes the effects on the item. So that's also important to note. Basically, you just get a magical item with a socket. Maybe not the best, honestly, unless you ended up with some pretty good effects. I'm pretty sure you can use chip skulls for this as well. And honestly, not the most ridiculously good recipe. In fact, I think I'd rather just save my chips and put them in a bow and make a chippy bow. However, if you had mainly like diamonds and amethysts, which don't make good chippy bows, could be an interesting option. Anyway, as always, I do appreciate you watching my videos, even when it's a 21-minute video on what to do with your chipped gems. And if you have anything else to add, feel free to add it to the comments. I'd be happy to hear. As always, thanks for watching, and keep watching.